Hello, my name is Hank Nystrom, and I'm the owner of Texas Timers. And I would like to thank you for taking some time and showing interest in learning more about the eMax timer. Uh, just to give you a little bit of background on Texas Timers, we have been in business for 23 years building timers specifically for free flight model airplanes. For the last decade, we have been the largest in the world supplier for these products. However, about 4 years ago, it became quite evident that electric was going to become an important part of free flight. And I developed a partnership with Dick Ivers, who is a renowned and well-known competition flyer of electric free flight in the United States. And as such, we developed a family, or a growing family of timers for this. Today, eMax is our primary and leading product. Most flyers are not electrical engineers. In recognizing this, our goal was to develop a product that was extremely easy to use, very reliable, and would be flexible enough to meet the needs of every free flight event flown. This product, with eMax, does not involve any plug-in chips that you have to keep track of. Everything is in one package as you buy it. There's no counting of button pushes to know what to do to change your settings, and it's extremely easy to check your settings at any time before you fly. So there's no worries about whether the timer is set the way you want it. Now let's take a closer look at the actual timer so that you can see how easy it is to use and how convenient it is for the flyer. All right, to begin with, there are four major things on the front of the timer. The first is this rotary switch, which has 10 positions on it, and you rotate this switch to whatever you want your motor time to be. You can see from this chart, for example, if I put the switch on position number 3, the motor will run for 8 seconds. All right. This switch here controls the DT time, and by varying, it's also a 10 position switch, and depending upon what position the switch is in, that determines what your DT time will be. For example, if the switch was set at 0 for DT, this will be for a test flight. It's 1.5 seconds DT, and that gives you a very safe time to pop that stabilizer during a test flight. If you want longer DT times, for example, 90 seconds, position number 5. If you want 120 seconds or 2 minutes, that'd be position number 6. And setting these switches is very simple. You come in with a small screwdriver and you merely rotate the switch to the position that you want. Here, I've set it at position number 4, which will be a 9-second motor run. Here, I can rotate the switch, and of course it goes either direction. I can put the switch over here at, let's say, position number 7, and that would be a DT time of 150 seconds. And any changes can be made to these switch settings until you've actually started the motor. So if you suddenly decide that you want to change the setting, all you need to do is come in and change the switch position. Nothing else is involved. And you can have any combination of times, any motor time and any DT time that you wish. Only one restriction: the DT time must be longer than the motor run. What happens if you accidentally set a DT time that would occur while the motor is still running? The timer will prevent the motor from starting. And this is just a fail-safe feature for you in operation. So if you make that mistake and you try to start the motor, it will not start. This button here is the start button. And by pressing it in, you can activate the timer to begin the sequence of operation. And this LED, which is yellow, is extremely visible in bright sunlight. That's why we chose yellow. You press the switch in and a release, and this LED will start flashing very rapidly. That indicates the timer is armed and ready to go. Then a simple push with your finger of the switch, you hold it in for a minimum of 2 seconds and the motor will start. And as long as you're holding the switch in, no timing has started. And as soon as you launch the airplane, you take your finger off that switch. That happens automatically, and timing starts. And that's all there is to it. Now, you've seen the major functions on the faceplate or on the front of the timer. Now let's proceed on, and I'm going to show you the actual operation of the timer with the LEDs functioning and actually a motor starting, and you'll be able to see a DT action occurring on the servo. Before we go into the actual operation of the timer, I jumped a little bit quickly for you. I wanted to show you the reverse side of the timer where you make connections. And this would be the same type of connections you would use with any timer for electric free flight. The bottom row of switches, or the bottom row of terminals here, is where the servo is plugged in, and the top row is where the engine speed control, or ESC, is connected. And once again, this is the same for all timers. And there is an option. I'm showing you the right hand or the right angle connector. There's also another connector option that has these pins sticking straight up. So it depends on what the configuration is of your airplane. Now, we haven't talked about this, but a lot of people use RDT, the RDT function. And this timer is fully compatible with RDT. I'm showing the pigtail here, which is a short cable coming off of the timer, and this would plug directly into the RDT unit that you would purchase from another supplier. The way RDT operates is while the airplane is flying, if the motor is running and something is going terribly wrong and you wish to terminate, you push the button on your RDT transmitter, the motor will stop instantly, and it will DT 1.5 seconds later. And that, once again, this is a safety feature. You don't have to push the button twice. One push, the motor stops immediately, and DT occurs automatically in 1.5 seconds later. If you're in glide and you see that your airplane is going someplace that you don't want it to be, where it's going, maybe perhaps going to land in an area that's going to make recovery impossible or very difficult, you can push your RDT button and the DT will occur. This is a time, of course, the motor is no longer running, it's in glide, and you push your RDT and the stabilizer will pop instantly and the airplane will come back to ground. The connections for RDT, this is a typical RDT receiver, and you simply plug this in like so, and that's all there is to it. Nothing, you don't have to make any other connections. That's all you have to do is plug the pigtail directly into the RDT receiver. Okay, now let's get to the fun part. This is where we're going to take the eMax timer for a test drive. First of all, in order to save some time, I have preset the switches. The motor switch here is set for a 5-second run. The DT timer is set for 5 seconds. In this particular case, the DT time will start when the motor stops. This particular function is for testing purposes and not for an official flight. When you move it down into the more advanced positions on the switch, then the DT time is referenced to when you actually launch the airplane, like you would be in competition. So we're sort of in a test mode right here. I've made all the connections. The battery's connected to the ESC and the servos are connected to the timer, and everything is ready to run. You will notice, if you saw there, a quick flash. That flash is only to let you know that the battery is connected to the ESC and the timer is powered. That's just to let you know that you're ready to go. And additionally, if you have quit flying for the day, this flash will let you know that you forgot to unplug the battery, which you recall is you always want to do to prevent depletion of the battery while your airplane is in storage. Okay, so let's take a quick run here. When I push this button and hold it in, the first thing you're going to hold it in or push it and release it, this LED will begin flashing very, very rapidly. And that is only to let you know that everything is armed and the timer is ready for flight. So I'm going to push the button once, release, you'll see a rapid flash. The timer is armed. When I push the button in and hold it for 2 seconds, a safety feature, the motor will start. No timing has begun, but the motor will start to run. As soon as I release the timer, as soon as I release the switch, all the timing functions begin. The motor time, which is set for 5 seconds, will begin, and the DT time will be ready to start as soon as the motor stops. So let's take a run here. I'm going to press it in. The motor is now running. The propeller is removed to minimize some of the noise. As soon as I release the button, this LED will begin flashing very, very rapidly, indicating the motor timing is starting. It's going to be 5 seconds, remember, and pay careful attention to the servo, because there's going to be 2 movements of the servo. One when at the instant the motor stops, and a second one that occurs 5 seconds later. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. There we go. The motor time is starting for 5 seconds. Now watch that servo. The motor stopped and the servo moved. Now 5 seconds later, keep watching. This is flashing to let you know there just went again. That was the DT release. What was this first release? This is an option on the timer if you wish to have an auto rudder function. Now, not all classes of electric flight will permit the auto rudder function, but it is available. It's no charge. If you want it, if you don't want it, then the best thing to do is just to delete it. Now I want to show you one additional feature before we stop, and that is if you decide to terminate. Let's say that you have started your motor and you decide that you don't want to fly. Okay, the timer is armed. I press it in. Motor has started, and I can push the button, and I have terminated it. Now, all the switch settings are the same. No, nothing has changed, but I just decided to not launch. Perhaps the wind changed, or for whatever reason, I just want to stop the timer and stop everything, stop the motor. That quick push, and everything stops. And that's just a convenience for you as the user. Now, once again, the 2 servo movements, one was for an auto rudder function, which you may or may not even want to use. It is just there in case you do want it. That's all there is to it. In the previous videos that you've just watched, we've concentrated on the basics of the eMax timer and really focusing on how easy it is to use. However, there are a lot of other additional features that we haven't talked about yet. Very briefly, I want to go over those now, and then I'm going to have a second video that will be a follow-on here that's going to talk about all the additional features and options and capabilities of the eMax family of timers. First of all, RDT, remote dethermalizing or radio dethermalizing, has become popular amongst a number of modelers, and this eMax timer is all set up and it's ready to go. All you have to buy is the RDT connection, which generally would be a pigtail, and I'll show you a picture of that here in the next video, to connect to the RDT receiver that would be located in your airplane. Additionally, there's a thing called a data port, and this will only be of interest to a very small number of you. It gives you the capability of taking a computer, a PC, with some free software, that you can download from the internet, and talk to the timer and do custom settings on both the times for both the motor and the DT. Actually, you can set it for up to 10 minutes of either motor run or DT time, or a combination of both. It's most often used, however, in the F1Q event, and that would be mostly what people would be interested in for. Additionally, there's such a thing called as the remote start. Some people have expressed an interest in launching their airplanes like a javelin, typically with one hand on the fuselage and a pretty hefty toss up into the air. And that would require a start switch that was someplace off the timer board. And so we have a connector that's available and also a remote switch that you can use for this function. Something we have not really touched on yet at all, which will be covered in the second video, is the eMax multifunction timer. This is a far more sophisticated product and is only going to be useful for people that are flying F1Q. It allows you to have not only the motor shutdown, but also up to 4 servo-driven functions, such that you can use for auto rudder, DT, variable stabilizer, and so forth. It's the same size product, same size board as the eMax, but it has a lot more features in it. Additionally, when we get into F1Q, a lot of people are showing interest in the energy limiter, and we have now introduced that as an option for the multifunction timer, that you can have an energy limiter, and we will also be even offering an energy limiter product in the near future. And then finally is the orientation of the connector pins on the back of the board, and we will soon be announcing a horizontal configuration. Once again, I'll show you a picture of what this is going to look like. I would like to thank you very much for the time you spent watching this short presentation and your interest in the eMax timer. We certainly welcome the opportunity to be your supplier of timers for electric powered models. And I promise that you will be happy with the eMax timer. There's no question in my mind that once you have it in your hands and once you have it in a plane and use it, you will fall in love with this timer. It's better than anything else that's available, and it's much easier to use, much easier to configure for the applications or the uses that you wish. And additionally, I'm always available by phone or email to discuss any questions you might have, or perhaps any problems, although I don't really anticipate that. The eMax timer has been so reliable. There have been only one malfunction to that in the timer, and that includes hundreds of them out there. And it was a minor malfunction that could be corrected immediately. So I'm here and available. I'm the timer guy, and I want to be your supplier of choice for all electric applications.